G'day and welcome back to the channel. On this episode, it is number 2 in preparation of getting ready for the Rylstone Classic 2022. And in this episode specifically, I'm going to be talking about all the tools that I take with me in my Classic Mini on any drive. So first things first, if you're new to the channel and you've recently subscribed, thank you so much. G'day, how's it going? Hope you guys are enjoying the channel. I certainly am enjoying bringing the best content that I possibly can to you viewers out there. Like always, if there's anything you want to see me do, please leave it in the comment section below. Make sure while you're there, you not only do that, but also hit the subscribe button and a little notification bell. This will let you know every single time a new video comes out. Now, most of these tools are very generic, and I do recommend every single one of you who own a Classic Mini go out and buy some really basic fundamental tools and keep them with you in your Classic Mini, because like any Classic Mini owner, we know that the inevitable is going to happen someday. Whether it be a misfire or a blown head gasket, you want to try and minimize the amount of breakdowns that you have or potentially may have in the future. I tend to overpack anything in life really, so the amount of tools that I have in my bag probably doesn't really need to be taken, but I just take the precaution and have the extra tools there just in case. Now, some of these tools are very specific to very specific jobs, and not every single person out there will probably agree with it, nor will you think that it's necessary to take a lot of that stuff. As I said, I do take a lot of extra stuff just in case, but some of the tools in here, you're probably wondering, why are you taking that with you in a Classic Mini? Why do you need that specific tool? And you'll find that out in the next episode when we go through and I explain all the spare parts that I take with me in my Classic Mini. All right, so without further ado, let's get into it. So we have a couple of tools in my tool bag here. The first and best thing you can buy is yourself a tool bag. These are really good, they're really sturdy, they're really handy. They've got a really strong zipper and they've got some really good carry handles. You put all your tools in there, zip it up, away you go. Saves them rolling around in the boot. All right, so first couple of things, got a couple of different hammers. We have a ball peen hammer and we have a dead blow hammer. So like every tool out there, it is designed for specific applications. So if you need to beat someone over the head, lol, just kidding. If you need to remove a drum or there's something stubborn you need to get off, you can do that on the side of the road. If you want to be a little bit more gentle, you can use a dead blow hammer. All right, so in my arsenal of tools, I also have a couple of random things. So we have things like cable ties and a bit of Scotch-Brites, and a couple extra parts. So those will be for another episode. We'll put those aside for now. Along with a couple of electrical components. So we have a little blowtorch here, and I think also in there should be some more cable ties along with heat shrink and probably even some electrical tape. Now, it is always good to be prepared for as many situations as possible. Cable ties come in handy for so many different things. The amount of times I've been able to throw a cable tie around something to stop it rubbing, stop it touching, vibrating, whatever. It's always good to keep a couple of those in your car. Scotch-Brite is really good that if you have to fix something on the side of the road, you need to clean two surfaces, just that way they mate properly. It is good to have some of that. You can buy this in rolls, or you can buy it in the little squares from Super Cheap Auto. Now, blowgun is really good to have. If you need to heat something up, you need to caramelize something because you're cooking for your missus. This is really good. It has got an adjustable heat range on it as well, but I also use it for a lot of electrical repairs. So heat shrink and that sort of thing, you can use it for that. It's not a necessity, but I do keep this in my arsenal of tools just because it is convenient. It's always full of butane gas and it's really easy to transport, and it doesn't weigh much either. All right, so I do take two different rattle guns with me. One is my 3/8 rattle gun, the other one is my 1/2-inch rattle gun. Always ensure that the batteries are fully charged on them. So mine has a little indicator on the side of the gun. It comes on green, yellow and red. Obviously, like I said, traffic lights, green we're good, yellow we're getting there, red it's almost about to die, and same with the Ryobi one. Ryobi is my preferred tool to take with me on any particular road trip, only because I have Snap-on at work and I have Ryobi at home. Ryobi is really good, it's really handy, it's cheap, it's affordable, it does the job, and to be quite frank, like the quality is there as well, so there's no doubt about that. So a shout out to Ryobi. If you want to jump on board, I'd love to test some of your tools. So once again, always making sure that you've got a full battery power. Now, you can get very specific ones, whether it be brushless, The standard one, you can get smaller, you can get larger, whatever. I do find this is the best type. Get one with the proper anvil on there. Don't buy the little one that you put the little bit in there, then you get the adapter that steps it up to a 1/2 inch, then you get a socket, because the weakest point is going to become the piece that goes inside here. So I think they're just the electric screwdriver type. If you're going to buy a rattle gun, buy a proper impact gun. This has got 3 different speeds, which I've shown you on plenty of different videos before. And I also take a deep 17mm socket, so that is for my wheel nuts. So the 3/8 gun is really good just to have. It's handy, it's quick. If you need to get something off really quick that you're in a bit of a rush for, or you can rush it, you can use this. It is good for removing wheel nuts if, you know, worst case scenario, you can't use your 1/2 inch gun, and just, yeah, real little odd jobs and stuff. Also the batteries are really light and handy as well, and a lot of different tools that Snap-on make are the interchangeable batteries, so if you got something else, you can also use the same battery with it. All right, texter. So texter is really good, as you saw with many of the builds that I do. I mark all the bolts that I do, so if you need to mark something, you need to test it to make sure that it hasn't moved, or you need to check your timing, or do an arrow for the direction of rotation for the belt. So if you need to remove the drive belt and then refit it, you know which way it goes. It is just something really easy, cheap and affordable to have. If you need to write your phone number on the side of someone's window because you're crashing their car, or you want to thank them, you know, it is easy to remove. But it's a paint marker as well, so yeah, just keep that in mind. If you're going to be riding on someone's car, probably just write on their window where they can easily remove it with a razor blade. All right, so I've got some more spare parts there. My heat shrink, so as I was talking about before, you should always carry a bit of heat shrink with you. If a wire strips and you need to repair it, it's going to help keep it insulated, and it's going to help to prevent any moisture getting in there and prevent any short circuiting, and it also looks neat and tidy. So this is just a really cheap one from Super Cheap Auto. I think they're like $10 or $15 for an assorted pack. There's, you know, 24 different pieces in there, so it's really good. It's a really basic kit. You can get better grade stuff, but this just gets you out of trouble, and I quite often use that as well. All right, so next one is going to be pliers. I do take quite an array of pliers with me no matter where I go. Like I said before, every tool does serve a particular purpose, so it is always good to have multiple tools depending on what you want to do for what you're going to do in the application. Swear it's like a bloody clown car pulling everything out of here. All right, so let's just start with the real basics. Pair of combination pliers, really easy, cheap, affordable. They also act as side cutters and kind of like vice grips, I guess, in there. They're one of my best favorite tools to use in terms of pliers. I got 2 different pairs of side cutters. I have small and large ones, so just depending on what you need to be cutting. They are good for cable ties, but that leads me to my next one. Side cutting cable tie pliers. These have got a little bit of rust on them, probably because I've been sitting in the back of my Hilux for a little bit. These are really good that when you are cutting cable ties, like I showed you on the Morris 850 earlier this year. They're really good that you can just cut the ends off it and you're not going to slice your finger open. So these are a really good tool. I'll try and remember to put the link in the description as where you can buy these. They are a Snap-on tool, and they are flush cuts as well. So yeah, really good tool to have. It's not a necessity, but if you're doing a lot of cable tie stuff, you want to make stuff look neat, these are definitely the way to go without having to use a razor blade on everything and try and cut it as close as you possibly can to the end. To finish off a standard plier set, just a pair of long nose pliers, really good to have, really cheap, really handy. You can buy different types of ones. There are long ones, there are shorter ones, there's real needle nose point ones, angled ones, whether it be 45 or 90 degrees. So each tool suits a different application, but it is a really good standard part of a basic toolkit to have different types of pliers, because you may use this on one thing, but you might need longer ones to be able to reach something else on another job. So as I said, having a variety of tools is always the way to go. All right, so a pair of multi grips. These are really good and handy to have. You can get bigger and smaller sizes, but this is just the kind of middle size. These are really good for doing things like just holding a nut that you need to be able to untwist another bolt out of it. I generally use these adjusting the ride height on my car, so I'll use this to hold the nut of the trumpet, and then I'll get a spanner down below and I'll crack it, so that way we can adjust it up or down depending where it needs to go. So vice grips, they're really good to have. pretty much every tool shed should have one. Every toolbox should have a pair. It doesn't matter if you're using it for welding, whether you use it for cars, whether you use it for boats, trucks, at home. They're really good and handy to have. Once again, different sizes, different lengths, different applications. These I've had for God knows how long. But yeah, when I do use them, it does help it out. And obviously the idea is you can clamp onto something and it's going to provide that vice-like grip, and enables you to remove that broken nut or stud, whatever it may be. All right, so next pair, a set of stainless steel shears. These are really good for cutting pretty much anything. They are used for cutting through cables and wiring and stuff, so it's really good for that. My wife does use them all the time to cut the stems off flowers, because, you know, chicks just love flowers and I just have to abide by it. Yeah, these are really good to have. These aren't a necessity. My mate actually gave me these. He works in the mines up in Newcastle. So thanks, Tomo, for sending me those. They come in handy heaps. Next one is a very specific tool. You can get different types of these tools. This is just an oil filter claw tool. So it's just designed to grab the oil filter and then enable you to twist it left or right, obviously, depending on what you're doing. You can use it for other things. It really just depends on what you need to do. The preferred method that I use is just the 3-prong claw. So it just depends on how much room you have as well to be able to get in there. Most cars you can use that. Minis are a little bit different, and almost anyone out there watching this video will know how difficult it can be depending where your number plate's situated, what car you have, what engine setup you have. But yeah, generally for most spin-on type filters, this is a pretty good tool. And my last set of pliers. So these are probably one of my favorite sets of pliers. They are a wire cutting, crimping tool, wire stripping tool. It's a bloody Swiss Army knife of pliers. So you can strip wires up here, you can crimp them down here, got a wire cutter there. It serves heaps of different purposes. So if you do need to stop on the side of the road and strip a wire and then re-crimp it, or you need to cut something, these are really good. And you can adjust the length here as well. So if you want to go longer for when you cut the bit of wire to give you a little bit extra length, because you may just want to twist them together, then insulate it with a bit of heat shrink, you can adjust the length here, shorter, further, whatever you want. But yeah, those are really good. Like I said before, these aren't a necessity to keep in your car, but it is a really good tool to keep at least in your toolbox. All right, so the next one is a couple of different ratchets. These aren't the only two that I have, but they do serve different purposes. So this one I've had since I was an apprentice, so I think I've had that for about 17 years now. That was one of the first tools that I bought, which claimed online it was Snap-on, which it clearly isn't. But these were really good for removing oil filters on Volkswagens and stuff, so that was really mad. And it's got an adjustable head as well, so you can just kind of stick it on there and away you go. This one is a bit bigger, and it's 3/8 compared to this one, which is 1/2 inch. Really good leverage on that as well. So depending on what you're doing, you can use different tools for it, but having an array of different size ratchets is a really good piece of advice that I would give to anyone out there who's not only looking for a toolkit to buy for home, for work, or whatever, or even keep in your car, for my instance. But yeah, definitely have a couple of different size tools, because if you're using the same tools all the time, it may just do the job, but you may find that specific jobs you do, you might need other tools. So definitely invest in different size tools for different uses. All right, so we've got a scraper and we have a wire brush. So a scraper is really good to clean surfaces. It's also good for prying things. This is a striking scraper, which means I can hit it with a hammer and it's not going to destroy it. It does have a steel shaft that goes all the way down through here, so it is quite reinforced. Yeah, these are good for scraping off old gaskets. If you need to get between two really tight surfaces, between a bearing and the stub axle or something, you can hit the end of it and help separate it, which is really mad. And yeah, just a wire brush. So if you forget your toothbrush, you can always use that. Lol, just kidding, do not do that. It'll probably rip your gums apart. These are just good for cleaning up surfaces if you need to get in there and clean something that you just can't get in there with your finger, or a bit of brake cleaner, or even a bit of Scotch-Brite. This just really helps. Even just cleaning up spark plugs as well. If you have a really fouled spark plug, you can just run that over it a couple of times and help clean it up. All right, next we have the old tuning fork, ball joint separator, whatever you want to call it. These are really good to remove ball joints, obviously, whether it be upper or lower ball joint, or even tie rod end off the stub axle. These also come in handy that if you do need to separate something, once again, because of the angle of it as well, it will enable you to put it between two surfaces and help separate it. Not just ball joints, but if you need to separate a gearbox or something, you need to pry something apart, whatever it may be. It is quite sturdy, and because you can hit it as well, it's quite hard. So yeah, that's a really good tool to have. These do come in different sizes. You just got to be careful that when you do use it, that sometimes you'll find where the boot is for the ball joints. In some videos I've done where I've shown you how to install ball joints, which you can probably see in the link in the description. You just got to be careful that these can destroy the boots on those ball joints. So yeah, keep that in mind when you're using that tool. Like I was saying before, you can never have enough tools, and one of the tools that I can never have enough of is screwdrivers. I try and keep as many different types of screwdrivers, and I've actually taken some out of here. But I have a combination of both long and short Phillips heads and flat blades. The more tools you can take with you in particular instances, the better it's going to be, because not all bolts, screws, nuts, whatever you're undoing, it's always going to have the same head and size. So having different size tools is going to be suited to that application. It's not like you're going to be removing the window channel off your Classic Mini on the side of the road. So these screwdrivers will probably be fine, but something a bit larger, you'd probably want something with a bit more heavy duty. These being snap-on as well, they are really good. I've had this green set also since I was an apprentice, so that's probably at least 16, maybe 17 years old. They were the first set of screwdrivers I ever purchased, and now I think I've only got like 3 or 4 left. So, all right, so I do also have a couple of random extensions in here. So I've got a couple of 1/2-inch ones in different lengths. So some of these I use primarily for hitting particular things. If you need to remove something that is quite tight, you need to drive something out. So this one here, that's supposed to be 1/2-inch, as you can see, compared to this one. They are 2 different sizes because I've smashed this so hard with the hammer, it's curdled it over and actually made it smaller. So that is just used for whatever, really. These are just cheap chrome vanadium ones that I've also had for God knows how long, but they get me out of trouble. They do the job. If you need to undo the crankshaft bolt or head bolts or whatever, and you need an extension, they're really good to have. They also, yeah, come in handy as drifts as well. Not that you should use them, but to get you out of trouble, you can probably use it. So that's why I use this one for hitting and these two for undoing bolts that I actually need to. All right, so next thing is cold chisel. It's not a necessity, but I keep it in there just in case. I don't often use it, but when I do, it generally gets me out of trouble, especially if you need to remove a bearing or something. Or once again, because of the angle of it at the end, you can simply put it between 2 surfaces and it'll help spread it apart. All right, so this tool here, this is a handbrake adjustment tool. I also bought this when I was an apprentice, so this is a good 17 years old, if not going on 18. So this is actually a Volkswagen rear drum brake adjustment tool. Because I used to work for Volkswagen back in the day, I bought it thinking I'd use it, and I literally never have. I think I maybe used it once or twice, but I keep it in there just in case. As you know, on Classic Minis, you do need a specific spanner. I forget exactly which one it is, but on my keyring, I have the spanner required to adjust the drum brakes on it. So I always have the spanner on my keyring. That way, if I need to adjust it somewhere, chances are, if I've got the car and I need to adjust it, I've got the tool. So it is quite a small one. I think it's like 7/16 or something really, really small. Smaller than 1/4 inch, I think. Someone can correct me in the comments. Maybe I'll just put up a link down the bottom as to how wrong I was. But yeah, that's handy to have. If you need to do specific things, you can, but that's not a necessity to have. All right, so the next couple of things. I do carry a couple of spanners with me. I use Ratcheting combination spanners, and I use them in 3 different sizes. So we have 9/16, we have 1/2 inch, and we have 7/16. Now you're probably wondering, why is it that you have 3 spanners and not a whole drawer full of spanners in your car? Well, several reasons. One, I bought these specifically because these are the sizes that you need most commonly on Classic Minis. 2, it was convenient for me to buy a Blue Point. 3, they are flexible heads, so if you do need to remove those bell housing bolts, which almost every single Classic Mini owner out there has done before, with the bottom bell housing bolt on the driver's side here in Australia or passenger side overseas, The one that's right near the subframe, it is super hard to get anything on there. So having the flexible head enables you to be able to undo it with ease or easier. I often leave that one out because it's just too much of a pain to be able to get out and back in. But yeah, these are super handy, convenient. If anything, I'd probably recommend to buy a roll of spanners. And by a roll, I mean like one of these kits that rolls out and it's got all the different ones in there. Just roll it up, keep it in your boot. They're really good to have, not just in your toolbox, but also just handy around the house if you need to do stuff. Because they are also imperial, I don't really use them on anything else other than my Classic Mini, whereas in my toolbox I've got both imperial and metric. So for a lot of stuff that I do on a daily basis, so here in Australia we use primarily metric, so probably 98% of things that we touch are all going to be metric, and occasionally you might find something that's imperial. In my toolbox I do have both imperial and metric spanners, so they're really good not just to have in the car but also have around the house. But yeah, definitely, if anything, I'd probably recommend buying an array of spanners. And then once again, they don't need to be ratcheting, but different spanners, different tools for different applications. All right, next one is a pry bar. So pry bars are really good, handy. If you do need to get something off, you need to remove something, you're trying to lever something, whether it be the wheel up or you're trying to check plane something, it's good to have. These are cheap and affordable. Nowadays, they're not much at all. This isn't a striking pry bar, so if I hit that, the plastic on the end will probably bend and break. So probably wouldn't recommend doing that, but as you can see, the thing's not completely straight anymore. So I have used it on quite a lot of heavy duty items that it probably shouldn't have been used on, but it is a worthwhile tool having in your car or even just in your toolbox at home. All right, so one of the last things is a really good set of sockets and ratchets. This is both metric and imperial, so I can use it on both my Hilux and my Classic Mini. There are all the basic tools, so everything's 3/8 up to 19mm and 13/16. Couple of different size extensions, both of the spark plug sockets, along with some adapters as well, and a uni joint with a ratchet. So really good, easy kit to have, and fairly affordable. Make sure that if you're going to buy anything, like I said in my very first video, which was a very long time ago, make sure you invest in quality tools to begin with. Don't just skimp out and buy the cheapest crap of stuff, because like the old saying goes, a poor man pays twice. So invest in quality. It doesn't need to be Snap-on, it doesn't need to be the best of the best, and you don't have to spend thousands on it, but get something that's worthwhile and that has a lot of uses for it. So a lot of different size sockets, lengths, different tools that come in it. You might even buy a multi-tool where it has everything from 1/4 inch all the way up to 1/2 inch, both impact, shallow wall, short sockets, deep sockets, whatever it may be. But really do some research into tools and don't just skimp out of them, because these sort of things are what's going to last you the longest in life. And a set of spanners that I have in my toolbox, I bought them. It was actually one of the first tools that I bought as an apprentice, and it was almost 18 years ago, and they're still going to this day. So a good set of tools will last a long time so long as you take care of them. So the last two tools is a set of torque wrenches. I've got both a 3/8 and a 1/2 inch one. I take these with me almost everywhere I go, and you'll see that in an upcoming video as to why, but it is good to know your torque settings, especially when you're doing up things like wheel nuts, even head bolts, spark plugs, all the real basic stuff that you probably think, oh, I don't need a torque wrench for, but it is really good to have. They do become quite expensive, and you do need to calibrate them on a regular basis. So every 12 months you should get them calibrated. Some of them are self-calibrating, like the big electronic ones that I've got at work. They are really good, but regardless, they're an item that you do need to calibrate quite often, and you've got to be super careful with them as well. You don't really want to be throwing these around or dropping them on the ground. The only other thing that I would suggest to have is a workshop manual, and possibly even a wiring diagram to take with you in your car. It is really good to know where things go and how things go together, especially if it's the first time you've pulled it apart in your car. Well, that's it for this episode, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed it. We will be up to episode number 3 very shortly on what spare parts I take with me and what you should consider to keep in your Classic Mini at all times. Thanks heaps for watching. Like always, stay COVID safe, and we'll see you right here on another episode of Tomo's Tune-Ups.